All right, so thank you all for coming. Not surprisingly, extremely nervous. It was much better when there were like 3 people in the room, so I'll just ignore the rest of you and think that there are 3. Sexy defense, maximizing the home field advantage, is something that I wanted to do for a long time, but I was too lazy and didn't have enough reasons to actually do it, just like any other defender. So that's hopefully is the right time to get it out there. This is what we're going to go through today. A little bit of background, what to read out of reports when you're a defender and you're trying to assess yourself, so you do pen testing and stuff like that, how to decipher them. Really thinking about a methodology of defense that works, as opposed to one that allows you to get notified when you're hacked. We'll talk a little bit about mapping of different assets and things that you have as a defender, correlating, acting upon everything, and kind of putting everything into context, and then some conclusions. This is me. I'm not certified to do anything. My only certification is something that was more of a hobby or a practice that I literally found out that there is a certification for that. It's called FAIR. It's related to risk management and numbers and math and stuff like that, which I found very interesting. My day job is mostly wearing suits and talking to people and managing stuff, and sometimes actually doing work. I'm a hacker by trade, a researcher by nature, a very bad developer. My stuff barely works, and then I hand it off to someone who actually knows what he's doing so they can make it work better and look better. I'm horrible with GUI. Most of my research in the past few years has been around cybercrime, and that kind of led off to cyber warfare, and that kind of led off to defense, because when you're dealing with attackers, especially at the nation-state level and large enterprises, you're heavily dealing with a defensive posture. As a hobby, I've set up the local DEF CON group in Tel Aviv, DC 9723, over a year in action, which is awesome. As Banshee said, I'm one of the guys that, in a drunken stupor, decided to set up the PTES, and it grew beyond our expectations, and I keep learning from it, which is really funny, because I occasionally log into the website like, oh, that's cool. And in the rest of the spare time that I have, I still do some reserve duty for the Israeli Air Force, which kind of combines all of this stuff together. And most of all, I'm dirty security. So let's talk a little bit about the background of this talk, or really how it came out that we're here and you're actually listening to a non-certified person. As a defender, you probably had, a vulnerability assessment done, which is cool. It's nice. It's a big stack of papers that tell you all your vulnerabilities. And you may have passed a pen test as part of your compliance regulation, blah, 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 blah. You wanted something more than a standard vuln assessment, so you called in the troops, and they pen tested you, and you passed it, or didn't pass it, or whatever it is. But so far, you didn't really get something from it. Again, I'm talking from a defender perspective that works with companies that try to get this thing done. You got a lot of compliance in place, which gives you nothing from a defensive posture, and not really a lot in terms of security posture, because you don't really know what happens when you get attacked, right? You had a pen tester come in and do some tests and simulate some stuff, which doesn't really reflect how a real attacker works, right? We all recognize that, I hope. Good. And then maybe if you're really, really high end and you're really thinking forward, you got a red team test done. At that point, hopefully, as my guys from the class from the past couple of days, the red team came on, wreaked some havoc, owned your, your underwear, and gave you a report, which, all right, so how do you feel about that report? Because it's pretty bad. So this is the first reaction. At least, you know, based on my experience, you walk in with a report and you start flipping through it, and the CFO or CIO is like, "You did what?" And then there's this. It's like, "There's no way you did that. You're cheating." Okay? And then there's, "Why did you do that?" That wasn't in scope. Forgetting that a red team is a full scope engagement. Usually you get resistance afterwards, like, "Yeah, you have to understand it was a Saturday, so it's not really a business day." Or, you know, "We weren't really ready for this kind of attack, and you need to see that our, you know, our security infrastructure is designed to have." Okay? I've never seen this. Ever. No, never in my career anyone came after me after presenting a red team report, and he's like, "Awesome, we're, you know, you got us. I know exactly what I need to do. This is how I'm going to fix this. We're going to change our security posture by changing processes and products," and yeah, which is pretty bad. Now, setting that aside, you're getting a lot of those reports. Not necessarily the red team ones, but definitely the pen testing and the security assessments and the vuln assessments. And there's a boring part to it, because you really need to work to make those reports meaningful. Most of them, again, I've been in the industry for a long time. I've generated my fair share of crappy reports, all right, don't get me wrong, are not really helping you as a defender to really realize, how am I going to deal with my threats? So you need to look, when deciphering those reports, at those elements, at what is a vulnerability, okay? What's an exposure, what's a threat, and what's a risk? And you need to deal with those elements as a security professional, because this is what management understands, right? They don't care if there's an IPv6 vulnerability in the stack implementation of your Windows 2008 servers that opens them up and basically bypasses the local firewall rules. For them, you're just like blah, 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 firewall rules. So you need to speak their language, unfortunately. But it's fun to learn this. Vulnerabilities you can find in a lot of reports, because that's what they're good at. It's finding some technical issue and pointing at it and saying, all right, this is the problem, this, and that. Now, note that they're mostly concerned with software. And as a defender, you're not just dealing with software. You're dealing with a business, with an organization. So most of these need to be translated again from the report to something that means something to the business. So take that into account and move over to logic and operational issues on top of just the computer systems. Again, just kind of make a shift to make this apply to a business more evenly. Exposure. It's like, why is that different than vulnerability? Well, exposure talks about how vulnerability connects to a threat model. Your server may be vulnerable, but there is no actual threat, relevant threat, that is relevant to it. Okay? So exposure is finding vulnerabilities that are relevant to a threat model. And you can read all about creating threat models and understanding them. And there's no like cookbook or software that you can press and it'll print a threat model for you, because it's you and you're different than someone else. A threat, again, going back to the threat model, is anything capable of acting against an asset in a manner that could result in harm. And again, harm is different based on what the asset is. A threat is usually defined by its capabilities and accessibility to the asset. Okay, simple so far. And we're usually talking about threat communities and threat agents. Right? So again, thinking as a business, you first of all need to identify who's out there to harm you. Is it competitors? Is it random people? Is it nation states? And this is a discussion that you need to have not only with yourself, but with business owners, with the CEO, with the CFO, they'll be able to answer that because they know the business landscape. Okay? So before you even start thinking about buying a firewall or an AV or whatever useless piece of software that is being sold to you, think about what is your job in the organization. And finally, risk. This is again part of the acceptance thing that is not often found in reports. Risk is something that really applies to you. It's a mathematical calculation of a probability of something bad happening to your assets. It's the combination of the threats and the vulnerabilities and the assets and the threat model, and yes, it's probability. So it needs to be repeatable, defensible, something that you can present to management. They're not going to argue about it, or at least they're going to have a negotiation about it. It usually translates back to numbers. And numbers, not just 0.753% of something, but for management, it needs to be numbers in dollars. It's like, this is how much it's going to cost you if that happens. They can understand that. They can then say, all right, so with my risk tolerance, I can invest that divided by, 50 to put some defenses on it. All right, let's see how that works and how that changes those numbers to mitigate the risk. So let's take a look at the methodology. How have we been doing this so far in information security for a very, very long time? This is the defender view. Okay, looks familiar? It goes back centuries. Okay, and this is exactly what we're seeing. And again, I'm generalizing, obviously there are a lot of companies that do it right, behind all of our defenses. Anyone can spot anything problematic with this view? Yeah, you don't see much, all right? There's a big wall, you're inside a castle, perimeter defenses, and you have little firing hatches, so the archers or whatever it is can fire through when they see someone coming in, but you can't really see a lot. I mean, they really have to be out there in front of you it's like, oh my God, shoot back. And again, it goes back, I've tried to find an analogy for how we as defenders are viewing the landscape these days, and I really had a hard time until I was like, let's go back to the basics. And when I saw these pictures, I'm like, this is exactly what we're doing. Right? We're limiting ourselves in terms of viewing the threat landscape with all those products that are like blinding us. This, however, is how the attacker sees you. Okay? This is the target, and the attacker can see everything around it, the entire landscape. It can see where your people are going out to have a beer at night. It can see the access path. It's a lot of times it's even on top or in a better geographical area to attack you, and you're still stuck in this little tower looking through a slit, waiting for them to show up while they have full visibility. And they're like, okay, so here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, here's 4. Let's not go there. Okay? Because there's a back door somewhere, or I can climb over this wall and kind of hop in and just take the gold chest and run out. Or there's a tunnel that connects the pub to the guard station or something like that. So I'm just going to crawl through it and kill him. And you're done. And this is how attackers actually work in info security. Let's see how that works. And again, I'm taking some stuff from the methodology that we've iterated, or it's not even developed, it's just put on paper from the penetration testing execution standard. If I'm looking at an attacker methodology, it starts with intel gathering. All right? I'm not even close to you. You can't see me. You don't know that I'm targeting you, that I'm doing research on how is that castle built and where are the holes and where are the doors and the openings and the tunnels and whatever it is. And then I'm researching vulnerabilities. Again, I'm not even interacting with you yet. I haven't stepped a foot, within a 300 feet range of your castle. But I'm already researching vulnerabilities. I'm finding out what kind of firewall you have, and what kind of servers you have, and what kind of stone is building your castle walls. And I'm going back to the mason and figuring out how strong it is, what are its weaknesses, who built it. Again, same thing in InfoSec world. And only then, after I did my homework correctly, and I know exactly how to exploit your vulnerabilities, after I mapped them out and did the correct intel gathering, I'm exploiting it. And that's usually successful. And then I'm getting control over stuff, I'm pillaging stuff inside, I'm starting to exfiltrate data, and basically, it's game over for you. Now, from a defensive point of view, this is what we see now. All right? We have detection mechanisms to detect the exploits, and mitigation and containment strategies. Incident response, forensics, and stuff like that. So we're basically sitting, waiting for our wonderful technology to tell us that we've been successfully hacked. Something wrong with that, right? This is what we're missing, and this is what we should be doing as defenders that have a responsibility for protecting a business or an organization. We should do threat modeling, which I mentioned before. Understanding who the hell is out there to get you. And really understanding what are their capabilities, what's their accessibility to our assets. Doing intel gathering. Yes, I'm gathering intelligence on my threat communities. I want to know them. I want to know what are their tactics, what tools they're using, where they're buying it from, who they're talking to. It's important stuff that will help me as a defender to better prepare for when they're actually going to decide to attack me. And we're still missing, regardless of the RSA conference, big data thing, whatever it is, data correlation. There is tons of data that we already have flowing from all of our devices and networks and servers and whatever it is, and people working in a company, and paper trails and partners and whatever it is, that we're just not correlating. We might be processing it one at a time or in a very specific aspect, mostly looking at stuff that breaks. Okay? Mostly looking at, the server's down. Good job looking at the data. There are like a million warning signs before it actually went down that you didn't correlate correctly, probably with other data sources that you should have that would have enabled you to stop that server from going down. So from a defender's, again, perspective, it's not about egos and people and skills. It's not about hiring the best InfoSec guy, with a float-sized ego that did research and conferences and whatever it is, because it's just not how it works. And it's not about the people, and it's not about their skills. It's about doing your homework correctly and developing a strategy that's relevant to your business. There is no product that you can buy that says proper defense, install it, have a blue light on it or whatever it is, that's going to fix all your problems. It's not fair. And I should have bolded that and put it huge here. It's not fair. The attacker has the advantage. So you have to take that into account and live with it. There's no better way to tell it. It's about having a mindset of constant improvement, because again, by nature, you're a step behind. So you need to realize that it's your job to keep moving, to keep learning what's out there to take you, what are those new developments out there. Go to conferences, learn what the attackers are doing, learn what the new research is, and keep developing, keep improving yourself, because you're going to always have gaps in the defense. Okay, so it's not about whipping yourself on every hacked server or downed network. It's about identifying, remediating, in the context of the risk, all your gaps. Again, in the context of the risk. I can't even count the number of times that I've told my, customers, so you can get, a shell on this Linux box. So what? just you have a button here that goes, re-image or reset the VM, and you're done. There's no point of investing anything in it because it's not even in your threat model. It's going to cost you way more to fix this problem than the damage that it can cause. So it's context. We're driven by technology and we're blinded by it and not looking at the context. So first of all, you need to map what is it that you're doing. A lot of times, again, too often, unfortunately, I run into businesses and people inside those businesses that don't even know what the business is doing. For real. What is making money in this business? They're like, oh, we're selling software. Like, no, really, what's making money here? What is your money? What is your main product line? What is your main service line? How does it operate? We're making software and providing support to it. Yeah. Talk to people who understand. Go inside the business, make friends, talk to product managers, business owners, talk to the CFO. My most successful connections with customers is with the CFO because he knows his shit. It's like he knows exactly at any minute every asset in the business, how much is it worth, what happens if that is gone, all right, and how much is it going to cost to replace it, to fix it, to remediate it, whatever it is. People, processes, assets. And again, at the end, there's technology and third parties, but all of those need to be mapped as part of your defensive strategy. Makes sense so far? I'm feeling like it's obvious, right? Why aren't we doing this? And then map your security and intelligence assets, because that's where you can play, all right, to fit the map that you've created. Yes?
When you say map, how do you actually do it in a concrete sense? Like a whiteboard, Visio, or that comment?
It's
like that.
Whatever. No, it's this is mapping according to I know it's we sell software. This is the we sell software.
Right.
Okay. I don't know. I usually use Visios and like kind of process maps. Right. Sometimes I use there's a cool Microsoft plugin to Visio for risk management. Threat modeling. That talks about actors and processes and assets, and you can play around with it, and then you can complement it with the rest of the stuff. But it really depends. Sometimes it's documents. It depends on the business, but anything will work. Again, there's no one method. Mind maps are huge. Love them. Just kind of tie things together, and suddenly you're at the point where you're like looking at something. Could be a person, could be a process, and you realize it's tied to so many other things that you didn't see before, and suddenly it becomes a critical asset that you've forgotten about. So mapping, I usually like to start mapping with from the reports that the business already has, because it's got tons of vuln assessments and PTs and whatever it is. So I start with those, weed out all the crap, weed out everything that's irrelevant. It usually requires you to have a proper threat model before that, and then you can kind of adapt all the little pieces that you can find in those things. And again, think about the context of what we talked about before, of translating them to business terms, and suddenly you can have somewhat of a map. This is one example of something that we did in the past. This is very simplified because we had to anonymize the shit out of it. So there are assets here. All right, these are assets. There's an asset here in the data itself. That's the input of a process. There's an asset here, which is a person that's responsible for something within the system. All right, there are systems here, and there's another asset here, which is kind of the data sitting on this server. There are servers and networks and firewalls and more people and more processes that feed this whole thing. And we've identified vulnerabilities, again, in the communication here, or maybe authentication. There's a vulnerability in the process that's beyond the scope of our reach. Deal with that. And there's a few more vulnerabilities here. So again, vulnerability is not necessarily something that I associate with a CVE or a server or a network. Okay, it could be with a process and even with a person that I find problematic. Again, this is just one example. There are many like it, not in Visio, but in other forums. Use whatever works for you. And again, involve other people in the business in making this. Because they're going to see that and they're going to go, all right, makes sense. By the way, this is not how it works, all right? Or by the way, we have additional controls over this because this person is actually two and there's someone else signing off of the work and validating it. So we're like, okay, cool. Logs, everywhere, everywhere. Storage is cheap. Just log it. Don't be like in 80s, you know, we need more terabytes on our thing. Just log everything. You'll find a way to use it. Trust me. The number of times I walked in to an incident response or a forensic case, and they're like, we just talked about it. I can't remember with who outside. I was nervous before the talk. Yeah, thank you. And you're like, so where's the logs on the web server or firewall or whatever, or net flows? Like, oh, they're rolled over. We don't have them anymore. It's like, okay, I can guess what happened here. Okay, I can theorize, but unless you have the logs, I'm out. Again, you can filter out the stuff later. Oh, you have logs. Last minute editing of the PowerPoint. Yeah, raw intelligence. Beyond electronic logs and stuff like that that you can get from all your devices and maybe paper trails and whatnot, talk intelligence, all right? Think, it might sound a little military, but it's not. It's business intelligence. Talk to marketing and sales. They'll have a lot to say about how they see the market and how they see the company and what are the challenges and who's out to get them and their experiences from the field when they lost a deal to this competitor who, beat them on price where he shouldn't have known the price, or beat them on features because he knew more about the features than they have, all right? You need to feed all of that into your security landscape because it means something. It means that you're leaking data somewhere, okay? And you need to take care of that. And it's not going to show up in a log somewhere, okay? It needs to show up in your mental radar that understands, all right, so this is how the business operates. We just lost a deal. It cost us money, all right? Yeah, the salesperson is a jerk and he's not doing his job right, but part of it might be my responsibility, or I could have assisted him in not losing that deal. Business development competitors. A lot of times you can open communication channels with your competitors and share stuff. I used to work for a couple of security companies. The salespeople would cut each other's throats in the field and try to get, finagle their way into deals and stuff like that. But I was in great, communication with a lot of other researchers from hatred competitors, and we did great stuff together. We shared a lot of information. So that helps a lot. Find those channels that you can get information. If your competitor was hit by someone, all right, you might be the target as well because you work in the same market vertical. Partners, customers are great. They'll tell you a lot. Once you get some kind of relationship, they'll tell you what your product does in their business or how, they'll be able to complement a lot of threat communities that you might have not mapped initially. Certs, everyone knows what a cert is? Yeah? Good. Could be corporate certs, could be national certs. Tap into their feeds, all right? It's free, and it's just like logs. Process it, just use the information. Market news and forums, we'll talk about forums in a second. So gather all that intelligence and find a way to process it. Whether it's someone going over, the latest news once a day or once a week, maybe it's something automated. If you have feeds, technical feeds from these things, find something that will make sense out of it and alert you. Even a Google Alerts will help you figure out if something is happening that's relevant to you. Look for early warning signs. Look for stuff that indicates something is wrong, all right, trademark again, something fishy is happening, but it's not really, we haven't been hacked yet. All right, look for weird PC behaviors. Look for volume of calls to support. People complaining about stuff, slow servers, slow processes. It might not just be, that software that you bought that just doesn't handle the workload. It might be something else. Might be another process running on that server. Might be someone scanning it or trying to search for files on it. That's another indication that you may be owned or getting owned. Talk to people. Have we had a spike in sales inquiries, in cold calls? Okay? Try to see trends in business processes that until now you've been blind to or you didn't take into account, and see how they fit into other elements that you've mapped so far. Guaranteed, this is interesting. You might find out that, like an industry analyst is doing some research before the research is published. That's also worth something for the business. You might find out that someone is actually trying to social engineer your call center and get information about your product or about your corporate. Pros on the website, file permissions. There are a lot of other things that you should be looking for in terms of early warning signs. And again, it really depends on how your business operates. Okay? Try to map out frequencies and kind of methods and behaviors that are normal and to identify anomalies. And people. People are great. I love people. Not a lot of us take the time to raise their hands, their eyes from the screen and actually talk to people and interact with them. But people can tell you a lot about the company and if it's being targeted, right? Or if someone's trying to gather intelligence on it. Ask them about stalkers, tailgaters, smokers in the smoker corner that meet new employees and stuff like that. Work on their awareness, okay? Have them alert you if something is weird. It's like there's construction down the road. No, there isn't. But I saw a couple of guys with hard hats, like walking around the building with tool belts and stuff like that. Okay? Work on awareness. Okay? That's a wonderful data feed into your intelligence kind of landscape that goes mostly untapped. I did have a chance to work with organizations that had a lot of this, and it's magic. It's like I don't need to work. Everything's happening for me. People are alerting me on this and that. I've got this phishing email. It looks wrong. The attachment is not working. How that will look at what's going on there. It's phenomenal. And then correlate. This is the hard part. Okay? Again, there's no magic solution. There's no magic box in a rack that you can buy to feed all that into. It does require a person sometimes, because there's no replacement to someone looking at data. They're like, there's something wrong here. All right? You cannot find an algorithm, again, from my experience, that will be able to do that. There's something wrong here. Sometimes we just see stuff, all right? And we just can't automate it. But in order to see that stuff, we need to have data processed and correlated. Look at timelines, okay? Look at local news, sports, entertainment, financials. Look at stuff that's happening around us and try to correlate it to everything that we've seen before, to the logs, to the business operations. And again, you'll find a lot of times that you can be prepared to a phishing attack, right? Because there's some, sport thing going on, and you're like, okay, so I'm going to look for those kind of things because I know that for every major event, regional, local, national, whatever it is, scammers are usually building phishing scams with that context to make people click it. And then act. And this is the hard part. Now, everything I mentioned so far was mostly about correlating and gathering and figuring out, it's mostly office work. Okay, of making a map and making sure that I know who my competitors are, blah, 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 blah. You can take action, all right? So we're moving slowly towards the left side in the in the process that we've seen to get closer to where the attacker starts their actions against you. Work with others, work with peers, train people to identify, report. Again, this is the stage where you're getting proactive and not just sitting on your ass waiting for the IDS to say, boop, you've been hacked, start working. And again, lying to yourself in terms of what your security posture is not going to get you that far. You might be like the hero of the moment, like, hey, CEO, look at us, we're secure. And a month later, you're like, hey, CEO, we're looking for new jobs. Okay, be realistic about where you stand and work with people inside the organization to get buy-in from them about how you see things, all right? Because you've talked to them. You know, it's their information that you're presenting them back in the context of information security. And again, constant development, expect changes. It's not like you do this one big project and correlate everything and build a threat model and gather intelligence and bam, you're done. Here's my security strategy for 2012. It's going to be worthless in 3, 2, 1 because something came up, okay? Because they found a bunch of 0 days on all of our infrastructure and now we have to rewrite the whole thing. It's worthless now because we just bought this small company and we have a new business line with a whole new set of threat actors that are really pissed that we bought them and they're out to get us. So everything changes. Expect that. Never sign off on a strategy. It's never going to happen. Okay? It's wishful thinking. Say, this is our strategy right now. We're expecting it to change in these areas because I know that biz dev is working on this, this, and that. Because I know that product development is working on the next generation of products that's going to change our market share or whatever it is. All right? Be part of the business and move on with it. Enable it. We're always saying security should be an enabler. We haven't been enablers. We've been dicks that you can't use this and you have to install 3 AVs and everything have to work slow because, you know, IBM bought me a big-ass lunch in Vegas. Great. Really enable a business by being part of it and knowing what it does. And again, educate people about it. This is my security strategy. This is how it works. I've identified the flaws in the processes here, and you know what? We can't fix them. But we need to focus on what's going on there. We need to better monitor them. All right? Maybe we need to put better control over how those processes work. That's how you get buy-in from people, hence enabling the business. And align outwards. Look what other people are doing from your industry, from other industries, from, you know, how it relates to you. Never accept, you know, compliance or regulation as something that's going to tell you you are secure, okay? Because you're usually not. If you're compliant, compliance has nothing to do with security. And the sad part is, if you're compliant, you're just as good as the lowest common denominator in your industry. Awesome. That includes everyone, all right, including the lowest bidders in your industry. That's not something you want to strive to, okay, in terms of a goal. I've seen numerous businesses that had regulatory compliance as part of their business goals for the next year. It's like, really? Mediocrity at its best. And again, remember, it's not about each part individually. It's not about people. It's not about skills. It's not about technology. It's about what we call in the industry cat herding. It's about making sure that everything kind of flows in the right direction and no one is running off to get run over by a bus or something like that. and kind of making sure that everyone plays nice and doesn't poke their eyes out. And then you throw in some of the more interesting stuff. And again, this is one of the reasons that why I'm giving this talk, because I truly think that we can be much more proactive. All right? We've talked about intel gathering. How about counter intel? It's still fair game. Okay? It's your information. You own the landscape. Remember that castle? It's yours. All right? And everything around it is yours. You better know exactly what's going on out there. What are the threats, vulnerabilities, technology, whatever it is, that an attacker would use, and own up to it. You can control it. You can implant like booby traps and tunnels and shit, and laugh when an attacker walks over and is like, he went out for me, and look at him now, he's spiked on this, something. Same goes for InfoSec, all right? It's the same game. It's the same castle and archers and whatever it is, all over again, and you control your infrastructure. Set traps and intelligence, all right? You want to find out who's leaking data? Put data that looks interesting inside the organization and track it and see where it ends up. You'll find them all. Trust me, we've done this numerous times. It's fun. I've become like agnostic to firing people because, you know, they fucked up, so. And I have the proof. Booby trap tools. Work with law enforcement when we're applicable. If you're a high value target, or you recognize or you realize that someone's targeting you, try to give a call to the local FBI office or whatever it is. You'll be surprised, some of those offices, again, it's mostly regional, actually have people that know what they're doing, all right? It takes time, it's a government paycheck, whatever it is, but there are people there who know what they're doing, and worst case, might be able to pass you along to someone else who know what they're doing, and you can work with them to be proactive. Not to mitigate, you know, the 1.5 million credit cards that got stolen, you know, from your processing server, but to stop it before it happens. Just reminding everyone, I'm not a lawyer. I have an interesting citizenship situation that allows me to do flexible things, and and I know of many, many ways to host stuff and work with data and work with jurisdiction and stuff like that, but you can do the same, all right? You don't have to be special like me. It's special like in the back of the bus there, special. But do consult with a lawyer and get like a real lawyer, not, you know, yeah, you can't do that. Get a lawyer that will tell you, well, you can't do that like this, but if we set up this company over there and we put some hosting in there, yeah, that can kind of work. All right? Let's see some examples. How am I on time? Oh, perfect. All right, so this is one example that's fairly recent that I managed to, I mean, it's burned. We can show you what we did. We've identified that this is like the laundry list. Identify your threat communities agents. We talked about it before, so I know who's out there to get me. I know who they're using, what hacking groups, forums, whatever it is, tools that they're using to attack me or to target me. Get into that information. Get into that hangout. All right, sign up to the forum. Find someone who speaks the language, sign up to the forum, or use Google Translate or whatever it is, and start hanging out. Start, really getting what they're using. Really get into the methodology. And then backdoor some stuff. Backdoor the tools that they're going to use against you. Make sure that the manipulation you did to the tool leaves a distinct signature. Update the IDS with a signature, and then just kick back and wait for it. Much more fun than waiting to be hacked, right? So here's a quick example. This is a forum called AR Hack. One of the threat communities that we've identified for a specific customer. Basically said that this is somewhere where they get a lot of their tools. They're not really high-end nation state stuff. So that's how it looks like. There's a RAT. Everyone knows what RAT is. It's a Trojan remote administration tool that's been published here. It's very good. It it works on Windows 7, Vista, XP, SP3, blah blah blah. This is how it looks like. Okay, so there's a command control. Someone's connecting, and the interesting thing is that this post has been modified. Where's the download link? Oh, shit, I didn't put the download link here. We managed to get the account, to hack the account, or to, yeah, this is on tape now. To communicate with the forum in a manner that allowed us to modify the download link for the specific rat that they're publishing here, and basically change it to put our version of this rat with another rat in it. I need a lawyer.
I already mentioned it for you.
This is, yeah, is he online? It's like, thank you. This is another one. This is a Spanish, if I'm not mistaken, forum. The problem here was, this is a keylogger, yeah. Again, same thing. This is something we started playing with recently in terms of counterintelligence on threat communities that we've identified. So again, this nice little fungus keylogger, keylog, has been slightly modified by yours truly is. This is the best one. This is my favorite one. This is another forum. This tool is a FUD, fully undetectable. All right, it's a cryptor that you feed it a binary, it crypts it and modifies it and spits out another binary that is fully undetectable. Right, so no antivirus has a signature for it, and behavior doesn't get it. You can see it crypts 100% FUD. This is actually a lie because Avira did catch the result from this originally, okay? It generates random encryption keys. It's really cool. You can find a lot of these. Most of them aren't that good. The good ones are private and whatever. There's a scan URL to show you the scan results and a download link. And this guy is like, you can request one password of one stub only. Don't PM me. I'll send you passwords to people who I feel I deserve, blah, blah, blah. So this was very interesting because obviously this was not distributed in a kind of mass distribution. The password that he's talking about here is the password to the RAR file that you download from Mediafire. Again, in this case, we did several things because, again, we knew that this is something that our threat communities or threat agents, more specifically, were going to use against us, against our clients. We took this, we analyzed it. Can you reverse engineer in the US? It's legal? Yeah? Yeah, okay, so reverse engineered, changed the way it behaved and fixed the problem it had with Avira to make it really fully undetectable. Because we're nice people, backdoored it, and again, this is where we made sure that every executable that it generated had a signature that we knew about. All right, so that was kind of fun because we set all the detection mechanisms to recognize this signature, and on top of the fact that everyone who ran this tool basically gave us a shell on their PC, which turned out very, very interesting things. And again, gave us a lot. This is counterintelligence. You gain more intelligence by interacting with your aggressor. And the second they sent it towards us, it was like, boop, done. It's not passing. So that was a lot of fun. Some more tools. Again, technology that you can use. I love this. This Kipo. Everyone familiar with Kipo? Yeah. No? Kipo is basically a honeypot. It's an SSH honeypot, an interactive one. So you set it up, and people who log into it can interact with a fake system. And you can see a lot of funny stuff. It's like, sometimes it works, it gives them accessibility to tools, sometimes it doesn't, and you can see frustrated hackers kind of trying to download Trojans and tools and rootkits, and you get all of those and you map them because that's the tools they use when they root servers, and it can really be fun to just watch the logs. There's a log parser for Kipo, so all the logs that it generates, there's a special log parser that enables you to see like what the hacker saw. So this is one of them. Again, it's free, it's open source, it's on Google Code, and it's really useful. If you, and I talked about it before, if you use your intelligence correctly and you plant those honeypots correctly, you'll get a lot from people interacting with your system, knowing that, they got nothing. This is frustration, okay? This is like, oh, damn it! I can't, and the funny thing is that people actually, kind of responds to what they're typing. So R minus RF star LS, nothing. So these guys like crashed their system. So yeah.
Did you backdoor that one too?
What, the Kipo? Don't need to. It's, you have access. He's interacting with you. From there on, you can do whatever you want. You can, if you saw the Kaspersky talk before, you can see what SSH client he's using. SSH clients are highly vulnerable. Just saying, all right? Artillery, good friend Dave has put this out in, again, but probably like half an hour of boredom or something like that. This is another honeypot. It opens up listening sockets on like a gazillion ports. Anyone who touches any one of those sockets, boom, immediately denied. So it gets blacklisted, and you can actually play, because this is open source, you can play with the response. So you don't have to blacklist it. You can, again, play with it or connect it to Kipo or connect it to other fake services. A lot of fun. Monitors file system changes. So you can actually set up a honeypot that will be hacked, right? Or that you set up enough information for it to be hacked, and it will email the differences for you, blocks SSH brute force attacks. Again, the link is here. A lot of fun. It actually works on Windows as well, so it's a really nice tool to use as part of your counterintelligence strategy to gather information about who's trying to hack you. And finally, you can start adding technology to the mix, all right? Like real technology, like vendor technology. And why now? Because only now you can say, all right, so this is where I need some more stuff. All right, this is where I need more controls, whatever they are. So find the right stuff that works for you, or make it. It's not that difficult. Sometimes it's even cheaper. This is usually a big focus of what you should be looking for, something to correlate data. All right, if you ask me whether to buy a firewall or an AV or an app whatever or an anti-anonymous appliance, I would go for SIM, SOC, whatever, something that correlates data. Was 1 minute. Feed as much technology, feed as much data into the technology as you can to automate the process of analyzing this stuff. All right, financial info, semantic data, Google alerts, anything goes. Push it into the SIM. You can do wonders with non-structured information that's relevant to your business. And play nice with others. Again, search governments, peers, competitors. Find ways to share information and get information from them. It'll do wonders for your security posture. This is my kind of last slide. The whole is greater than the sum of its elements. All right, stop thinking about technology or servers and networks. All right, think business. Make sure that you understand how everything works and own it. If there's one message that I'd like you to leave from here is this. Right? Stop buying shit. Stop clicking on stuff, and you'll be fine. That's it.